But I don't think anyone's getting that.
No.
But I'm going to keep doing it. So welcome back to the Identity Human podcast. That is a childhood memory intro. So here we talk about, if this is the first time you've actually listened to this, we talk about all things identity, all things human, mentality, psychology, personality traits. You mentioned performance.
Optimizing human potential.
Optimizing human, like your
the
potential.
anti-drifting movement.
We'll get on to drifting. So Ray and I'm going to be honest with you, we've just spent 8 minutes recording the first element of the podcast, talking about drifting, and we went back and forth, and I stopped, and I said, look, I think that maybe we should introduce it at a later stage, because realistically, we want to talk about Three Peaks and the mentality behind it, and there's not enough time to fit that all into one. So we're almost going to tease you with the drifting, because the drifting is almost, it's like the kind of thing that, how would you say, like it stops you from achieving your goals, being who you want to be, and achieving your purpose on life. Like that's how I think
it's a big principle.
And it's
maybe dedicated episode 2.
Yeah, and do you think it maybe settles well because it makes so much sense when you hear it?
Yes, and like I was saying earlier, we won't go down the what is it, like the rabbit hole on this one.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just, I was so shocked how much actually falls into the category of drifting, and I was like, wow, I had no idea that was drifting, and it kind of just blew the lid off of a lot of things that we all do that we make excuses for in our head all the time.
Yeah, and there was kind of no way out, was there? And it's like they place you in this like element of drifter, and you're like, no, I'm not a drifter, and then they name them all, and you're like, damn, I'm a drifter.
Yeah.
And you have to then keep working on this. Anyway, that's a teaser.
The Identity Human, the anti-drifting movement.
Yeah, we're going to work on our tagline.
I'm
quite
teasing,
like that.
yeah.
Well, let's see how it develops. So, we've just got back from Three Peaks.
The National Three Peaks Challenge. I think we touched on it in a previous episode.
Twice, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened before, in 10 seconds, it's climbing the highest mountain in Scotland, England, and Wales. In essence, in 24 hours.
Which I think you told me actually isn't the 3 highest mountains in the UK.
No.
There's actually like a group that are higher.
For example, the highest mountain in Scotland is Ben Nevis, and the highest mountain in England is Scafell Park. But I'm pretty sure, almost certain, that in Scotland and Wales, there's mountains that are taller than Scafell Park. So it's just the highest in Scotland, the highest in England, and the highest in Wales. It's not the 3 highest mountains in the UK.
Yeah, which I did not know that. Kind of disappointing too. So I know we could talk about the experience in terms of Snowdon and all that kind of like how beautiful it was and the different things, but we're here to talk about the mind. We're not going to take up the whole evening, the whole time that people are talking. So I want to talk very specifically about, say, the actual experience and how did that work out for you? And I'm talking like we're there to grow, you're there to push yourself. What are the big things that stood out for you?
The big things that stood out for me were just from I've wanted for years, for a decade plus, to be able to do something where Don and I could train together. And obviously with him being a professional rugby player, he always was busy with that.
Yeah.
So this was really exciting to have the first thing where Don and I were really training together towards something. So that was a big takeaway for me. So doing something like this with your partner in life, I think, is just a really great way to have just some fun together, but also be working towards a common goal that's quite tangible. So just like the training was really good in that sense. It's taken me from where I was very slowly getting back into exercise after having all the kids to like just being a bit more purposeful and intense with the workout. So that was good. But in terms of the actual challenge, I did probably on the cusp of not enough training, although I managed to, when I got on those mountains, nothing was going to stop me doing it in the required times. So it was a lot more painful and a lot tougher than I ever imagined, but we did it in the time that we needed to. So
was it tougher than you imagined?
100%. I would say because I left a piece of my soul on Ben Nevis.
Yes,
Okay,
I don't know if we want to go into that.
Don, don't listen to Don over here, because if we look at the heart rate stats, he was on a leisurely Sunday stroll the whole challenge, where I was in the 90% heart rate zone, like absolutely dying.
So like zone 1 to zone 5, Ray was in zone 5, 4, and then a little bit of 3, whereas I was like zone 1 and a little bit of 2, maybe a touch of 3 every now and again.
Yeah, so as we're climbing Ben Nevis, now Ben Nevis typically takes, they say if you look on websites, 8 to 9 hours, and we had to do it in between 5 and 5.5 hours, and we did it in about 5 hours, 15 minutes to meet the overall time. And when I was climbing up Ben Nevis, like trying to keep up with the Foster group, because we had guides guiding us on timings of pace and everything, I was operating at pretty much, I might have had 2 or 3% more to give, like 98%. Like this was max effort. I felt nauseous from the amount of exertion I was putting in.
Actually.
And I said to Don, like, I can't do it. He's like, so you've got 80% more to give. I'm like, you have no idea. Like, I do not have, my tank is empty.
I was the classic, like, David Goggins, like this. I was like, come on. I was like, oh, you can't be like this hard, like 3/4 of the way up the mountain. You've got so much more to give.
And this is the first mountain, just when you've reached the peak at the, yes, I have conquered the hardest part. Boy, and this is like, I suppose, a analogy for life, did I have no idea what was still coming my way, because the descents proved to be 10 times more difficult and painful. Like that's where I truly, on the descent of Ben Nevis is where I truly left like a piece of my soul.
But that was because you were in pain more than...
I was in so much pain.
And not like physical muscle pain. You had a spasm that went below your knee.
And it just was so painful. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the first mountain. And what is happening? And I had a full-on like 5-year-old tantrum.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it.
I shed some tears.
I'm really glad you said it.
This was all while motoring at pace downhill. I was having like little like angry sobs.
So
I slipped on that mountain. I slipped like 3 times and wiped out.
Put it this way, like I did 9 years at like elite level sport, right? As a psychologist and someone that loves the human mind, I got to like analyze how people were going without them knowing I was observing. So
the group of 22 people.
This one was even better because I was literally just observing Ray. And like when she says the 5, it was more like a 4-year-old, and I was like, oh, is that inner child? It's like, and I was like, oh, is this something that's come out because there's something like she used to throw tantrums when she had to work hard, and because it was like I just got this feeling I was this little kid that was just throwing a tantrum that was like, gosh, she was so angry. But then I was just like, but then she just moved forward. Like she was angry, but she had this ability to keep going, which is where I want to touch is like, we bring in the mental side of it. Like physically you got through that and like you could have climbed another mountain in 8 hours time. But mentally there was something that helped you keep making choices to keep going, where perhaps 6 months ago or a year ago, you may have just been like, no, this is too much. Like I'm really freaking out. And it would have taken a lot more convincing. Whereas I didn't have, a word here or there, it got you going. It wasn't much. Do you know what I mean? So what do you think? Like, do you think that there's in your prep and influences and all that kind of stuff that we can usually speak about that would have helped you on the mental side of it, make those choices to keep going? Because especially looking at your zone 5 on that first mountain, there was like, 90% of the mountain was zone 5, but you kept going. And there's a very big difference between being in zone 5 and stopping and falling back, because you could have fallen back to there were people behind you. There were 2 levels of guides behind you, but you had something in you that was, and you did at that time, you didn't have this like super determination to get down in under a set time. You knew what your average was, but at that time you didn't know how long up to the top and bottom. You just kept going. So, like, as a reflection, what do you think that was? Like, so anyone listening and...
I do know, as much as I didn't have the overall picture and I wasn't that obsessed with time at that stage, I knew what I needed to achieve on Ben Nevis to be on track for the rest of the challenge. And Ben Nevis was the one I was most nervous about because everyone talks about it being the most difficult. But in terms of having that mental toughness, I mean... It's a big one that we've spoken about a lot on this podcast, is around like when you go to the gym and you need to build a muscle, sure, it might take you months before you see any muscle growth and you'll notice before anyone else does, but you do eventually feel that ability to pick up heavier weights and see the change in muscles. And I think working on your mindset there aren't as many clear markers to keep you going. But I've been doing cold water exposure and ice baths. And other, that's just like, I feel like ice baths, you must remember, are the seed of the beginning of working on your mindset. So been investing a lot, Don and I have been investing a lot of time, money, energy, conversations just on developing ourselves. So it starts with the ice baths, with consistent routines daily, with meditations, with journaling, with all these practices to just really dig deep and get to know your inner purpose and what you're wanting to achieve, and just like building that mental toughness, basically.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping you'd speak on.
And so, yes, I mean, definitely there is a degree of, even just in day to day, but obviously heightened on the mountain, is that because you are doing hard things and not constantly seeking comfort, and you show your brain and your mindset that you can take on hard things, like getting in horribly cold water at the weekends now that Don has a freaking chiller on his ice bath. That's another story. But I do feel like you were kind of like alluding to that there is a degree of having that much more mental toughness when a big challenge like that comes, we've chosen to come into our life, and hopefully that means we'll be tougher when other challenges come too.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, I mean, I don't have to say anything because you touched on them, but it's also, we speak about, like everyone mentions comfort zone and stretching a comfort zone and going beyond that, and that's where you grow, right? But I was thinking this, when you challenge yourself day to day, week by week, you technically are still in your comfort zone, even if you feel like you're out your comfort zone. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, even getting in the ice bath is still kind of, yes, it's cold and it's horrible, but it's still in your comfort zone because you're doing it over and over again, and it's planned and you know how it's going to go. But the one thing that came to me on that mountain, and like when the 5-year-old Ryan came out, and I was like, now that's what I think getting out of your comfort zone actually means, is because you couldn't have planned for how you're going to feel there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it was like, it brought out an inner self that, like, it's like when I link the chimp into like comfort zone and the chimp doesn't, like, that was really like that chimp coming out and being like, what the hell are you doing here? Why are you doing this? And those are the thoughts that we really have to learn to master to really make that like unshakable mentality and achieve goals. So that's what I really liked about the challenges. It was like this whole time, like for 2 years, you're getting in the you're getting the cold shower and you're doing all those things, and we think, yeah, we're stretching our comfort zone, it's growth mindset and great and all this, but technically you're still comfortable because you can just snap out of the cold shower and you know that there's things there. But you never get to the point like on that mountain where you can't just sit down and go, I'm done, that was a lot. You can't just go pick me up and take me down. You have to get to the bottom. And you have to then push yourself even more. And that's the kind of thing that I think is really where they talk about getting yourself out the comfort zone. That for me is far more valuable than doing all the other things that we try and add in day to day, like going for runs and all that kind of thing.
Do you know where a big part of the mindset work that we've been doing, I really think came to play, was actually somewhere that you maybe you weren't aware of and didn't fully think about. Yes, it was on the mountain, but that was like in the moment. I was in motion. Once we got to the bottom of that mountain and we arrived on that bus, and it was about another 5 or 6 hours to the next mountain, and we were sitting on that bus, we got off once or twice to do like stops at services. 100% of my mind, I swear 98% of myself. Like there physically wasn't anything left in me. Like I was done. And I had kind of said to myself, well, I know I want to complete the 3 peaks, but I genuinely do not think I am going to be able to walk up the next mountain. So I sat, and it wasn't until half an hour, I sat with it, but I was almost like, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't like, oh, this is the challenge done. Because you never heard me say, oh, I'm done with the challenge.
No.
But in my mind, I was like, I'm done. But I also know that I'm not going to let how I feel right now decide how it's going to be in 5 or 6 hours.
Nice.
So I just sat with it without freaking out. But I basically was like, my body, I cannot move. I've never felt a feeling like that. But I was like, I'm just going to wait, and I really hope that when we arrive at that next mountain, I will literally physically be able to do this. And it was literally only about half an hour before we arrived, and when we were putting our boots on for the next mountain, and I was like, okay, I feel like I can maybe do this. But up until that point, it was like game over. And just to put it into perspective, the next mountain we started climbing at 10 p.m. at night and went until 2 a.m.
That was interesting.
So yeah, that was actually really like, it was like, yes, going down the mountain, we were in motion, and there was a lot of like digging deep on the mental toughness, but there was a whole other mental game to play, sitting on that bus for 6 hours waiting to climb the next mountain and not just throwing it all in.
Yeah.
There was like, the chimp was saying you're done, but like the human in me was like, I'm just going to be quiet until the time comes for me to be like, we're doing it.
Nice. I like that. I like that road that you took us all on there, that journey, in terms of like the mental game and not judging your future by your present. I think that's a huge one that people do. Like you look at something like, oh, I can't do that. And so you think because you currently where you are is incapable of running, say, a marathon, for example, then people go, no, I can't do that. But if you go, actually, don't judge your future by your present. I just need to run a K, and then 2K, and then 5K, and then so you would have been like, I just need to wait till right before, then I'll decide. And then by then you've recovered more and you can make better decisions.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So a bit of an interview question for you then, Don. You've obviously in April, was it April, about ran a marathon, and now 3 months later you've done 3 peaks. What were your lessons on the mental side of things?
If I'm honest, the more prepared you are, the easier it is.
Yeah, that was your big like flex, like, oh, look at me, I'm
no, but it's
stiff.
not like
on Sunday here I am walking down the stairs backwards, and he's like, why are you walking funny?
So she actually, Ray did, and I said that, Ray did take offense, like, and I was like, oh, isn't this an interesting analogy for life, where like we both did 3 peaks, but the next day Ray's in tatters and I'm like, I can walk up and down the stairs, I'm fine. And I said, isn't that funny, like the mental game, like when you're not prepared for something, it doesn't mean that you can't do it, but the recovery time takes longer. And so, isn't that interesting? Like, if you mentally are preparing yourself for something, so like the mental game of ice bars and making hard choices, that's like mental preparation for when you do have a challenge that comes your way, you're able to bounce back quicker.
And I suppose what's interesting on that is if someone said to you, like on Sunday, how are we going to go, here's the next challenge, you would be ready to go, and I would have been like, I'm out.
Yeah.
So, and in life, if you're working on your mental toughness, you may deal with the challenge, and when you prepare, someone who's prepared their mindset and someone who hasn't will both get through that challenge, but it's when the next challenge comes, and the next wave that you've recovered and you're ready to take on the next challenge at full capacity.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. But then when I said that, remember you initially like, what do you mean I didn't prepare? What do you think? And I was like, no, that's not what I meant. It's just a good... And realistically, you, in the terms of scale of preparation, because I'd run the marathon, automatically I had prepped for 3 months longer than you had.
Yeah.
But you took offense saying like I said you didn't train enough and all that kind of stuff. Which
well,
is so
no, but I also chuckled to myself because I was also like, well, at least I didn't waste more time training. I still completed the 3 peaks. I did the absolute bare minimum. And then when I showed up on the day, I was like, I'm going to make this happen regardless.
Yeah.
But then if we're applying it to mindset and like taking it to I can choose when my next physical exercise challenge comes, but in life you can't choose when you might have just had a big client leave your business, and then you have employee issues, and then you have this, and you don't know when the next wave is coming. So actually you can't be as predictable with the challenges when it comes to life and dealing with them.
Exactly that.
So it's better to be more prepared.
Yeah, and I think another like you said, what are the lessons? Like, it's almost... sometimes things don't get as exciting when you're with a group if you've trained hard. So like, for example, I know that someone goes, Don, you're in zone 1, you should have pushed yourself harder. And it's like, well, no, I was with the group.
Yes.
I couldn't exactly just go ahead and do my own thing. So it would have been a much different challenge if I'd done that on my own, because I know that I'd prepped. And I was like, I could have gone at a much faster pace. And
so it wasn't
really
like a big
it.
physical challenge.
So it wasn't a big physical challenge. It was genuinely nice to be able to support you and be part of the group and all that kind of thing. But I even came back and I said to you, that didn't do much for me because I was so well prepared. It didn't make me go, wow, I learned a lot about myself then. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for me, it pushed me to limits that I was like,
you
discovered 4-year-old versions of myself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think the beauty of it is. And I'm almost, and this is going to sound weird, I'm almost disappointed I didn't get to a point where I could see how I challenge myself. But then again, the flip side of it has running 2 marathons enabled me to do something like that and not get to that point as quickly. And so then it's progress that you just haven't recognized. You just think it just didn't push you. I had also, we haven't mentioned this, I had also fasted.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
So like I was going to go for a 24-hour fast to do over the 24 hours with the peak and see how that goes. But you started
the night before,
which I didn't think, because I was like, people are going to think I'm not doing it properly. So I started the night before, and then the driver just, I don't want to blame the driver, just things just happened to take a lot longer.
Like they arrived an hour late in the morning and just went from there.
So by the downward way on that second peak at Scafell Pike, I did 30 hours of fasting. So I did those first 2 peaks completely fasted from like dinner the night before. We started at 7 a.m. and then down from Scafell Pike, I still was fasted, and I felt incredible. Like really, it was so good.
Which is fascinating because everybody else, me included, like you would feel an energy dip every 20-30 minutes and have to be sucking on Energels. So you're constantly consuming something to give you energy, and Don had none of that.
Yeah, like it was genuinely Energels and nut bars and like, liquids and all this kind of stuff. And I was having salts in my water.
Yeah.
And it was just like that. It's so interesting how like some people will take the information they're given and just run with it. Whereas if you're your own experimenter and your own scientist, you can actually, there's always a different way of doing things. Now, I would love to do 3 peaks again and try fast for all 3 peaks. But I just felt like with the stage that we're at, just playing that, I didn't want to then completely dip off or do something that was outside of what I'd imagined. And it was fascinating because then...
Was there any mental challenge to that?
No, because you're active, like fasting is easy when you're doing stuff.
And you've done lots of fasting.
Yeah, and I've done lots of fasting. So, but what was really interesting is if you guys want to try it, when I got back to the bus, I then ate. And then I slept, and then I ate, and then I slept, and we stopped, and we had like burgers, and I was just like, right, we've just spent 6,000 calories have been burnt by everyone normally, and I had none to burn off. Now I'm going to put that all in my body. So by the time we got to Snowdon, I was pumped. Like I was like buzzing with energy because you had so much food, and your body's just taking this all in. So Snowdon was also like it was relatively easy, except for the down. Like you were absolutely motoring on the way down. And I had to try and keep up. Like I don't think I would have done it as quickly if I wasn't following you because you recognize the pace you need to go at. Where I was just like, I'm just chill. It doesn't matter. So yeah, it was very interesting.
That's our debrief of the 3 peaks. But thinking how we can take all the work we put in on the mental sides day to day and see how it played out in an extreme example.
Yeah.
But it's preparing us for we never know what life challenges are going to bring us.
Yeah, we hope we get that message across. So I think we're going to call it there.
Yep.
That was a good summary of it, and we don't want to harp on about it. And there'll probably be times where we come up again in future episodes and we talk about, say, influence and scale, and we'll come back to this. But this is just a really good debrief on things that are fresh. So.
And I always like to end off with just a bit of a summary where we are at with our current challenge. We are halfway through day 5 of 10 on our current challenge. The challenge ends on Sunday. What's the date on Sunday? Because today is the 9th of July, Tuesday the 9th. And the challenge ends on this coming Sunday. Do you want to look at the date?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 14th.
The 14th of July. What is relevant to you? If you haven't joined the challenge yet, it's never too late to join and hear about some amazing models that can help you toughen up your mindset. But also Don is doing a live Q&A on Sunday the 14th of July, which if you sign up to the challenge, you can then find the details for that live Q&A. And he's going to be dropping in some golden nuggets there. So do join us if you can. And that you go to www.identityhuman.com.
Yeah, and it'll be good to have you along the journey. Who knows, it might come up at the right time for you in the future. So with that being said, thank you very much for listening. We are who we are through others. So I'll look after me for you and you look after you for me. And we appreciate you guys. We're very grateful for you following. If you find this helpful, share it around. Let's see what we can do. Right, have a great week. Bye.
Cheers, bye.